Hi, Luke here from Technicamps with a quick video for the tasks associated with session 7. We're going to jump straight into it. So task 7.1, write a program which asks the user to enter 10 numbers, one after another. Once the user has then typed the last integer, the program should output the number of the largest of the integers that was entered. Okay, so you should use a while loop, which loops 10 times. Each time through the loop, the user should enter a number, and the program should use an if statement to keep track of the largest number. Okay, so file, new file. Did it say integers? Okay, while I is less than 10, and that might go around too many times, so we need to declare I first. I equals 0. While I is less than 10, user input equals int input, please enter a number, and then if user input is greater than largest, largest equals user input. Okay. And then finally, at the very end, we want to, I guess, print out our largest value. That makes sense. And we should lowercase l, print largest. Okay. The only problem here we have is we haven't declared largest yet. So we'll just define largest equals user input, and then, largest equals, we'll take this bit here and put it here, and then, so that's the first number they enter, and then we need to do this. I think this will do it the right number of times. File, save. Task 7.1. Place that. Okay, run this program. Okay, run module. So if I enter 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9. I'm expecting it to allow us to enter this 10th number, and then it should stop. It didn't stop because I forgot to actually increment my counter, which is not a good thing. So I equals I plus 1. File, save, run module. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The largest number was 10. And just to kind of give us some, I guess, validation, we're going to print largest just to check that the largest number is being kept track of the entire way through. Largest here. I wouldn't actually have these lines of code in my finished program, but just to kind of, give myself some indication for this. So I'm going to say 10 is the first number I enter, and it's telling me the largest number is 10. Then I enter something like 8, the largest number is still 10. I enter something like 3, the largest number is still 10. I enter something like 100, the largest number is now 100. 98 minus 1, 2, 789, 1000. Cool. So it is definitely doing what it feels like it's doing what it's supposed to do, and then finally it prints out the largest number. Awesome. That feels good to me. So I would delete that, and I would delete that. So I've got my loop counter. I set the initial input to be the largest one because I haven't got any other input, and then I loop around the remaining 9 times to get extra values through. Okay, and I do a comparison each time. So write a program which asks the user to enter 10 numbers. It's done that. Once the user has typed the last integer, the program should output the number of the largest of the integers that was entered. Fine. You should use a while loop, which loops 10 times. Mine loops 9 times, but that's because I wanted it to get into the loop in the first place, so I think that's fine. Write a program which asks the user to enter a series of positive integers. The program should keep asking for integers until the user types the integer of -1. Once the user has typed -1, the program should output both the smallest and largest integers that was entered, ignoring the -1. Okay, so let's have a new file. So we're going to have this while loop, and we're going to check our user input, and we're going to make sure it doesn't equal -1. Whilst it's not -1, we're going to do some comparisons. So we're going to say if user input is bigger than our largest value, we want to set our largest value to equal user input. Else, if user input is smaller than our smallest value, we want to set our smallest value to user input. Okay. And then what do we need to do? Well, we need to actually ask for the user input. So let's do one outside. User input equals input, sorry. Please enter a number or -1 to exit. Okay. And then I need to also ask for them to enter a value in here. So user input equals int input. Please enter a number or -1 to exit. Do the colon thing here to make it look pretty. Okay, so the user enters a number. If they enter -1, it skips through the while loop and does nothing at all. If they don't enter -1, it comes in here, it does some comparisons for smallest to largest. But to do the initial comparison here, we're going to have an issue because we can't call largest until we've defined largest. So if user input, I don't have to put it there, I can actually put it inside, so I can just initially say user input equals, sorry, largest equals user input, smallest equals user input, because initially the first value we get is going to be both the largest and the smallest. Just need an if statement here. If user input is greater than or equal to 0, I guess. Yeah, greater than or equal to 0, because otherwise it's going to be a negative number, and if it's a negative number, then it would just skip the while loop anyway. So we don't want to declare a smallest and largest. And then finally print, in capitals, print smallest, little comma, and print largest, there we go, with a little comma and largest. Okay, so the user enters a number. If the number is non-negative, the smallest and largest get set to that number, then I think I can put this at the top. Well, user input does not equal -1, so it has entered the loop. We can do this again, but this doesn't actually matter here. And then user input, we just get the next value. Okay. Right, so let's just file save, run, save it as task 7.2, run module. Okay, so implement 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then -1. The smallest number was 1, the largest number was 4. Okay, run module. Let's just instantly type in -1. Okay, we get an issue there where we've kind of we've never defined smallest because we've never actually come into either of these things. So I should probably have if smallest how am I going to do this? Okay, we're going to do something slightly different. So we're going to call smallest equals the empty string, and we're going to have largest equals the empty string. That's all fine, that's all fine. Smallest equals, so if smallest equals the empty string, then print, yeah, we'll do it like this. No value was given. No input values given? Yeah, no input values given. Cool. Else, there we go. Print smallest equals largest equals. So if I save and run this now, file save, run module. Oh, invalid syntax. Equals. There we go. File save, run module. Okay, so again, just checking that it works. If I type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 100 minus 1, we get smallest is 1, largest was 100. That seems good. And then we go run module, and we instantly type in -1. I get no input values were given, right? So what I've done here is I've initially set smallest and largest. I don't actually have to set largest here at all, but I've set smallest to this empty string value. When we get an input, if the input is greater than 0, then we've got an input, and that is our first input, so it's simultaneously the largest and the smallest value you've got. So we can set largest and smallest to this input value. If we then instantly typed in -1, we come to the bottom. Well, smallest has been defined now. It is no longer the empty string, so we'll print what the smallest is and then what the largest is. If we haven't at any point defined it, then it'll just print out no input values given, and this only can occur, this if statement can only be true if the very first value I entered was -1. Okay, that'll do, I think, for task 7.2. A bit of a, this extra stuff of just making sure that I don't deal with the, I don't deal with the -1, well, I deal with the initial thing of not entering any numbers at all. I wouldn't expect everyone to do that. This is just, me trying to ensure that things go exactly how I want them to. Also, the fact that I've got this if statement here, and then this comparison here is maybe a bit, at least initially redundant. In certain cases redundant, but then once you've entered the loop more than once, it's useful. So that's another kind of separate part. Okay, so that's task 7.2. Let's look at task 7.3. Write a program which asks the user to enter a single string. The program should output the number of vowels in the string. Hint vowels, the letters A, E, I, O, U. Cool. Loop over the string, inspecting each character as you go. If the character is a vowel, then increment the counter. Once you've looped over the entire string, then you can exit the loop and print the value of the counter. Okay, so file, new file. So we're going to have our I equals 0, our counter equals 0, user input equals input, please enter a string. Okay, while I is strictly less than the length of the user input. Okay, if user input square bracket I equals, we're actually going to convert our user input into uppercase letters. User input equals user input dot upper, just so it catches all cases. So if user input equals A, or I'm just going to do a copy and paste here. A, E, or I, or O, or user input of I equals U, A, E, I, O, U. Need to make sure I put in my colon at the end of this, equals u colon counter equals counter plus 1. Okay, so we run through the list, we check each element. We run through our string, we check each element in the string. If the element in the string is a vowel, we increment our counter, and we also need to remember that we need to increment our loop counter. And then finally, once we're finished, we print I. No, we don't print I, we print counter. File, save. This is task 7.3, task 7.3. Run module. So let's enter a string, hello world, today is a Friday. There are 9 vowels supposedly in here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's just test it again. Let's put in something like Luke, which has 2 vowels. Techno Camps has 3, 1E, 1O, 1A. Cool, so that seems to be working quite well. Challenge task 7.4 then. Write a program which asks the user to enter a series of sentences. The program should keep asking for sentences until the user enters the empty string. Once the user has typed the empty string, the program should output the total number of vowels that were entered. You will need a nested loop. Okay. So file, new file. So we're going to kind of use a combination of this one, which counts the number of vowels, and the previous task 7.2, which loops through the user being able to enter values. Okay, so I equals, we need to declare all our counters, so I equals 0. We're not actually going to declare it there, that would be a bad place to declare it. We're going to declare our counter outside, which is good, and we're going to get our first piece of user input. Equals input, please enter a sentence, or does it say enter? Just types it. They just print it, yeah. Or press enter to exit. Okay. While user input does not equal the empty string, what are we going to do? We're going to go through, we're going to set I equals 0. We're going to go through the user input. So this is just something I'm going to copy and paste from here. We're going to take this bit of code. So I equals 0. While I is less than the length of user input, if user input equals A, increment the counter, and eventually this finishes looping, this exits, and we're going to ask them for a new. So this needs to be indented, this needs to be indented. This needs to be indented. This doesn't. User input, and then we're going to call it another user input. V. And then finally at the end, we're going to print number of vowels in the sentences, comma, counter. Okay, so what does this do? The counter gets sent to 0. It asks the user for a sentence. If the user doesn't enter a sentence, it's just going to print out that there were 0 vowels in the sentence because you didn't enter anything. Otherwise, it's going to enter this while loop. It's going to set our index counter called I to 0. I is going to run through the sentence that you've just given it, looking at each letter. If the letter is a vowel, it increments the vowel counter. And then after it's looked at each letter, it moves on to the next one. Once you've finished with this while loop, so you've looped through the entire word looking for vowels, we ask for a new sentence to compare with. Okay. Eventually, at some point, the user types in something that is just the empty string, task 7.4. and the program cancels. So run module. Let's type in our first sentence. Luke is super cool. Number of vowels in the sentence 0. We've made a mistake somewhere then, haven't we? Because there are definitely vowels in that sentence. So if user input of I... While user input does not equal like an empty string, this should be fine. Okay, equals 0. We get the user input. We compare it to the empty string. It doesn't equal the empty string. I get set to 0. We go through this. This should be all fine. Okay, so we're going to print our counter at each stage now, just to kind of go through and debug. File, save, run module. So let's say Luke. So if user input I, so something's going wrong here because we're never hitting this print statement, and there's definitely vowels in the word Luke. So that's definitely user input. That's definitely user input, and they're spelled the same way. Whilst I is less than the length of user input, let's just have a little print here of I, and then print len user input. File, save, run module, Luke. So it's setting to say I is 0 and that is 4, which it is. So while so 0 is strictly less than 4, if, let's just make sure that this all stuff is all indented to the right level. Okay, if that should be 1 indent, that should be 2 indents, that should be 2 indents, and that should be where it is. Yeah, run module. No, that should be inside the while loop. There we go. Run module. Okay. Luke. So 0, 4, but it's not hitting this print statement. Why is it not hitting the print statement? Let's go print. User input I. Save, run module. Okay. That's why it's not working. I forgot to convert my letters to uppercase letters. So let's get rid of all of these prints because I've now identified the problem. I want to turn my user input into uppercase letters. So user input equals user input dot upper. There we go. So I hadn't converted my letters into uppercase letters. Because I hadn't converted my letters into uppercase letters, it was comparing the lowercase letter e with the uppercase letter e. They are different things, and therefore it wasn't incrementing my counter at any point. So now that we've fixed our problem, and you've seen some live debugging, let's run the program. Luke is super cool. Number of vowels in the sentence is 2. We've still got an issue because the number of vowels in the sentence is much higher than 2. In fact, it's just 2 here. So is there any point at resetting the counter? It shouldn't be. Okay, let's put this in big screen. Right. User input, division I. Okay, Luke. LUK is. Again, I forgot to put. I've only converted it to an uppercase letter in the exterior of the loop, not in the interior of the loop. File, say, delete these print statements again. Run module, okay. Loop is super cool. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I run the module again, run module, and I just give it an enter, there is 0. Perfect. Okay, so, as you can see, writing code, it's you have issues with it, you're going to make lots of mistakes. I make lots of mistakes, and I've been doing this for quite a while now. A really, really important skill is actually being able to fix your mistakes and identify where your mistakes are. It took me quite a while, but throwing in some print statements there will definitely help out and help you solve your problems. That will be it then for the tasks 7, for session 7. Best of luck with the rest of the course and session 8 and onwards.